You're listening to the Business to Bigness Road to 6 Billion podcast. I'm your host, Chloe Love. Since 2011, I've helped over 500 entrepreneurs and small businesses brand and launch successful companies while helping them obtain over 20 million in funding. In addition to that, I have funded and co-funded over 5 companies that have growth between 7 and 8 figures in revenue. Today, I focus most of my time teaching, training, and mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs, small business owners, and creative talent. That's why I created Business to Bigness Road to 6 Billion, a weekly podcast that will take you on my journey to achieving my 6 billion goal while sharing my experiences and perspectives in order to educate you in the areas of branding, funding, business development, mindset, and more. You may be wondering why 6 billion? 6 is my life path number. It's the amount of people I want to impact, and it's the wealth I'd like to achieve in this lifetime. So whether you're working on your first 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, billion, or even trillion, this podcast is for you. To submit questions or request information on a specific topic, receive updates, or contact me, visit www.chloelove.com and subscribe to my email list. Without further ado, let's get to business. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business to Bigness Road to 6 Billion with your host, Chloe Love. Today's episode is titled Imposter Syndrome is Real, and we all know about it. As you know, we start our episode with a quote, so today's quote is, "Trust yourself, you know more than you think you do," by Benjamin Spock. What does that mean? That means that we belittle the experience and our thought process more than we give ourselves credit for. We know a lot of things, we experience a lot of things, and we digest things differently. And just because you may digest something differently from someone else does not mean that how you look at it has less value. So we got to give ourselves more credit, and we have to be, kinder to ourselves. The definition of imposter syndrome first, let's start there. It's not an actual mental condition or a disorder, but this term, also known as imposter phenomenon or fraud syndrome or the imposter experience, it describes someone who feels that they aren't capable as others to think, or to insert themselves in certain ways, or basically they don't feel like they're entitled to success or that they're deserving of it or that they're smart enough or they're good enough for, the good things to happen or to be held in a certain esteem. And like most things, imposter syndrome is just based around fear. It's the fear that they'll be exposed as the fraud that they think that they are, right? And everyone's going to laugh and point at them and say, haha, you're not who you think you are. You're not as good as you think you are, all these things. And the problem with that is that those thoughts can paralyze you from actually moving into your intentions and completing your goals. And sometimes we get caught up with those feelings, those fears, and we allow those fears to paralyze us. And we're not doing our due diligence to community. I've had my own journey with imposter syndrome, to be completely honest. And the journey stems from the fact that, people tell you things or they put you in a category. And sometimes when you don't align with what you've been told a lot in your life, you start to second guess, is this real? Is this for me? Well, who's right? What I'm seeing happening or what people told me? And is this just something that's temporary and everything that they said is really going to happen? So again, it's still compounded around fear, but it doesn't mean that your fear isn't validated by an emotion or an experience that took place in your life. The thing about fear is that you just got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, to be completely honest. And you got to move through it. I speak from a place of feeling nervous or anxiety or fear a lot, and I just still go for it, because you still have to be able to accomplish those goals and have those experiences, or you're not living. You're alive, but you're not living the life that you want to live. You're not putting yourself in a place to succeed or excel in what your visions are. Growing up, I heard a few things. I heard you're pretty for a dark skinned girl. I'd hear that all the time, and I did my first keynote on that. And what that meant is in colorism, as we know, in a lot in the Black and minority communities, most people felt that if you were darker than a paper bag, that you were not worth as much as people who are lighter than a paper bag. And it goes back to slavery. The darker slaves worked the fields, and the lighter slaves were inside, where they got better food. Or I mean, it really wasn't that much better, because they were right at the hands of a lot of torture and things like that. But in the communities, those who are outside, picking a cotton, getting whipped, they fantasize that those who were inside lived this amazing life, because they were lighter, when both lives were terrible when you think about it. But it created that legacy of colorism in my specific community. And that being said, growing up, I had a grandfather who was darker than me, who would tell me, like, you ain't gonna be ish. You nothing but a black bee. You're never gonna accomplish anything or amount to anything. Like, people like you don't go places. And you don't know how much these things affect you until you're in the position of being the opposite of what you've been told. When I was in high school, I had a professor tell me, well, not a professor, a teacher. We're in high school, but I had a teacher tell me, like, you need to drop out and go to an alternative school, because let's face it, you're never going to go to college. You're never going to graduate, and you're never going to be anything. Granted, in high school, I was a little hyper, may have been, I wouldn't say a class clown, but I'm a kid. We're having jokes, and you're not taking everything as serious as you should. But I never like flunked out or anything. And this particular teacher got my friend to drop out and go to a school that actually became a part of my legacy later on in my life. It was City As High School, and it was at that time a school for students who could not keep up with traditional high school. So, they went there as an alternative to a GED. And City As High School became the school that was the first program I did my nonprofit with Brook Brothers Development. It was the first school that really launched our micro moguls program. So a school that he banished me to and told me that because I was less than, I had to go there, was the school that made me more, right? Down that journey. So seeing things like this and experiencing things like this, you start to melt away the fear that is imposter syndrome, and you start to say, okay, well, maybe what they were saying wasn't true, but it still lives within you, because you're wondering if what they're saying is going to come back and like kind of bite you in the bum, right? um is it going to be that I thought I was better than all these things, and I thought that I could overcome all these things, but you're just kind of waiting for the rug to be pulled from underneath you and whatnot. And it's just simply not true. Life is what it is. It's unexpected. There are ups and there's downs. There's twists and there's turns, and there's lessons in all of it. So if your mind is open for the lessons, if your mind is open to build the perspective, then you'll be okay with whatever the journey is. There's some things that I had to invoke in myself, and there's some steps I had to follow. One of the things is that, I spoke to my friends about what I was feeling, my anxiety. I was very transparent with why I didn't do certain things, because I would get people like, why don't you hurry up and put out a course already? And I'm like, well, is the information that I have valid? Is it that, it's not, is it valid, is it valuable? I kept asking myself, is there value in what I have to offer or what I'm saying? Am I saying the same things everybody else is saying? I didn't want to be that guy, right? Is my information any different from anybody else's? Doesn't everybody already know the things that I know? So having those feelings stopped me from showing up and taking my place in leadership and helping my community. And I honestly was really embarrassed about it for a while. I went on my live on IG and I told them, I said, I was going through imposter syndrome, and it attacks you in certain ways. It's like I went on my IG one day with no makeup on, right? Because that was a part of like moving past the superficial stuff that was stopping me from doing the things I needed to do. I went up there, no makeup on, like I had my hair wasn't fully done. I didn't look like I just came out of bed, but still, I was groomed, but not to the point of like I didn't just go to the hairdresser and get my hair laid. My face wasn't beat to the gods. And I went on my IG and I was like, listen, I gotta, admit to you guys that not wanting to show up glam all the time or having the energy to do it, and not just doing those little things or allowing those little things to play a role in me not playing my role in bringing value to my community is something that's eating away at me. I went to school. I have 2 master's degrees, right? And I'm still asking myself, do I have valuable knowledge? And degrees don't make you knowledgeable, or they don't make you a person who is able to lead or even teach, right? It just means that you know some stuff and you went through some things that maybe others didn't, but there's still experiences and knowledge that you're going to come across that other people who didn't do that hasn't had the opportunity to. So there's always going to be an opportunity for you to bring value to a conversation. It doesn't have to come with a degree. It doesn't have to come with 80 years of experience. Everything you say is from your unique perspective. It's forged by your experiences. It's forged by your mindset. It's forged by the people you have around you. So the way you see it, no one else will. The way it has processed through your beautiful mind is because you lived the life that you lived and you've gone through the things you've gone through. And, with that being said, if we start to look at things that way, if we start to speak in a place, from a place of conversation and being open to someone else's journey, maybe not being like ours. So even if we disagree, we can understand why. We can understand why their mindset has forged that perspective. We will allow so many people to have a voice, as well as we will put ourselves in such a seat to learn more, to to do this less and to do this more. So first of all, I'm gonna give you guys 3 tips from my upcoming course on how to overcome imposter syndrome. I don't have a magic wand. I don't have I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, a PhD, or any of these things, but there's steps that I took that I think if people are passionate and they really show up, that these steps can help them. Um, One of the steps that I'm not going to talk about today was, like I said, is being very, very honest with my people. And I have a friend, Jordan, who would say things to me like, don't talk about my friend like that, when I would say bad things about myself, or I would say belittling things about myself, or why I wasn't showing up the way that I needed to. And hearing her say that for the first time, don't talk about my friend like that, it really stumped me. I was like, me? Is she talking to me about me? And then I had to really stop, and like, it was humbling too. Like, I had to really think, this woman loves me. This woman puts time and effort into me. And here I am talking down about where she's investing her time. It was humbling. I have my other friends, they all have different personalities and how they show up. Some friends are like, they love you through it. They try to speak to the rational part of your mind, because imposter syndrome is really something that is completely irrational and crazy. So they try to rationalize with you, like, listen, this is what you've done. This is who you are, and you're still sitting up here paralyzed, wondering if what they're saying is true. Mind you, there's the news clipping, there's the this, there's the that, but you're still wondering, am I making the impact that I need to make? Is it good enough? Am I perfect? Am I doing it perfect enough? That's where these things start to beat you down. So I'm going to give you guys of three steps from my course, that's going to help you. One of the things that has also helped me was my journal. As I said, I created this journal from a place of necessity. I created the journal because coming out of the pandemic, really, I remember, you're going to see this in my other podcast. Joel Gargiulo goes, everyone dropped a podcast and like 3 courses during the pandemic, and she was just laying there on her back trying to figure out how to get up off the floor during this, and feeling like everyone's moving forward while you're just stagnant. That's something that can also create imposter syndrome. And sharing those things and being able to laugh about it with each other, like those are the things that take away the power from it, right? This was something that took away that power. My gratitude journal, my journal, basically, really quickly, things that I'm grateful for, things I'm going to focus on today, affirmations that help me. Then, that's how I start my day. Then I come back, well, what made me smile today, right? You don't just start your day this way, you finish your day this way. And what are the gratitude activities that I did today? Like, what did I do that was intentional? You know what I mean? And then I'm the type of person, I love quotes, as you can tell from the podcast, and I'm a believer in the Most High, so I use prayers as well. I couldn't find anything that had all of this in there, and that's what I need to function, right? There are pages in the back for each month for you to reflect on what worked, what didn't work, what do I want to focus on. This was something that helped me because it kept me focused on the things that made me feel good. The things that made me feel good, that was around me. And sometimes we can let those things slip us by. So definitely, if you haven't gotten your copy of this, I suggest you do. I made it from a place of necessity. Most things that are made from a place of necessity means that there is a demand for it, and sometimes you don't know you need it until you actually have it. So go get your copy today, and I'm going to move into the 3 steps that you can actually take that is going to help you overcome this imposter syndrome. These are 3. The course has 10, but I'm going to share these 3 with you. One of them is admire your failures. Yes. It takes a lot of guts to fail. If you are doing something that takes risk, that doesn't risk failure, I'm sorry, if you're doing something that doesn't risk failure, then you aren't doing something very challenging. This is easier said than done, but saying it can be an easy way to start doing it. Remind yourself that failure is good. Failure is growth. Failure reminds you what is real and what is fake. I love this one. I had to share this one with you. You know, we had a panel at the space, and one of the panelists, Ronnie Rose, who is a Gen Z or millennial, I'm not too sure, but she's a real estate guru, and being a woman in her field, she was talking about a lot of the things that she had to overcome, or sometimes when she's overlooked, when she's the person closing the $30 million deal, and she spoke about her friend who positioned herself for 100 no's. And we were like, why would anyone want 100 no's? And she set herself up for the 100 no's, for one, to minimize the impact when she got it. And for 2, it meant exactly what this just said. She was growing. If she was having the conversations for whatever her goal was, she's going to interact with no's. And if you set yourself up to receive 100 no's, that means that you're setting yourself up to have about 500 conversations. You're setting yourself up to grow, to get the word out. So you're expecting the realism of there's going to be failure there. But the failure to not do anything at all is where the true failure is. And from those no's, guess what? She learned either why this company didn't align, or why companies like that wouldn't align, or what she may have said wrong, or what she can do differently, or she learned this ain't the space for me, so let me leave them alone and not waste no more time there. There's a lesson in everything. So admire your failures, because that means that you're actually trying at something, and you're trying at something that takes risk. It's something that is not easy. So there's the opportunity to fail. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. Give yourself kudos for showing up. Grow from it, learn from it, and that's it. Move on. Number 2, challenge your perfectionism. Ooh. That one's exhausting for me, even saying it. I remember was I think it was Joelle again on another panel we did. Joelle was on the first time I worked with her. She was on my fempreneurship panel, um, and she she said something on the panel that activated me in a different way, and it was done is better than perfect. And as simple as it was like I needed to be there to hear that, because I would erase, draw back, rip up the paper, come back to the drawing board. And it wasn't that I didn't know the stuff, it wasn't that I didn't have value in what I was already putting out there. It was something like what John Maxwell said: the moment you put something out is the moment that you're going to feel like, oh, I wish I had added that. But that's why you can 2.0 something. And that's why there's always more moments that you're creating to continue to put this information out, hence this podcast. And that perfectionism was like, it's a killer. It's one of the biggest things that are stopping people from showing up and moving forward. You know, perfectionism is one of the most common forms of imposter syndrome. It tells you I can't be legitimate because I'm not performing optimally. Everything that I've said to you, you know, is that I was wondering, is this the highest value? Am I saying things that like other people are already saying? Am I saying things, you know, in a generic way? What makes what I have to say special? Am I doing this at the highest optimization? And the thing is, nobody performs optimally. Like, it's no matter what it looks like to you when you're seeing people doing this, it's not what you think, you know. Seek out people who instinctively recognize as legitimate. And okay, I'm gonna have to cut that part. the thing is the thing is, nobody performs optimally. The thing is, nobody performs optimally. It's an illusion. You know, we're all going through whatever our changes, our emotions, our processes, right? You really need to seek out people who instinctively recognize as legitimate and find their own flaws. Like, you don't want to be around people who can't see anything wrong with themselves. You don't want people who are always downing themselves, but you want realism. Because when you speak to people who are successful and they share with you that realism, you'll start to see that, oh, this is the outcome. You know what I mean? But the process is, it's a bit all over the place, you know? This may sound petty, but remind yourself that nobody is perfect, and you will feel more at ease about your own flaws. Why not? Remind yourself nobody's perfect. I'm not telling you to not care about anything and not to put any effort, but just remind yourself that nobody is perfect and be comfortable in that. I'm not here, you know, alone in this. And last but not least, be humble. Be humble. See, you know, the problem with imposter syndrome is it makes you think that being humble um, means thinking less about yourself. You know, that if you think that I'm not good enough, that means I'm humble. But as C.S. Lewis said, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's all about thinking of yourself less. You hear what I just said to you? That means not being self-centered. So if all you're doing is thinking about, I need to be the greatest, I'm not forming this, I'm not good enough, I'm not, it's coming like it's from a place of being humble, but it's actually still coming from a place of being self-centered, you know? You're just centering everything around this one thing. And when you do that versus what the solution is that you're trying to solve, or what the problem is that you're trying to serve, that's the opposite of being humble, you know? But what you need to what you need is to stop thinking about yourself and how fraudulent you feel, But that doesn't mean that you need to focus on thinking about yourself differently. You just need to take your mind off yourself for a bit, right? So let me come back from that again. All about thinking about yourself less. Okay. What you need is to stop thinking about yourself and how fraudulent you feel. That's what you need to really do. But that doesn't mean that you need to focus on thinking about yourself differently. Like, let me think about myself as how great I am, or how smart I am, or how powerful I am. It means that you just need to take your mind off yourself for a little bit. Stop thinking about you so much. Think about something else. Shift your mind to something else. Again, like, whatever it is that you're trying to fix and serve, put more intention and more passion and thought into that. And I'm going to tell you, it's okay to also not be the person that has to be the front line for serving that thing or fixing that thing. It's all right to align with like minds, like purposes, and just bring something valuable to something great. You don't have to be the Superman all the time. You can be, and maybe you already are. But when you overthink it is where you're going to create that opportunity for imposter syndrome. So to wrap this up, I'm just going to end it with, don't beat yourself up over things you can't change. The serenity prayer is my favorite prayer. And, it basically talks about asking God for the discernment to change the things that you can, have the power to change the things that you can, have the wisdom to see the things that you can change, and basically like the discernment to know the difference between the two, right? And I love that because it's like you can't beat yourself up over things that you can't change. And that's a prayer for me that if you guys want to look into, is that serenity prayer, to follow up with that quote. That's something that really helps me through a lot, and it really 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 is a great prayer that can bring you through imposter syndrome. Learn, improve, and grow and move forward. Learn, improve, and grow and move forward. Don't sit in something, don't stew in it. And use the tools like I do in my book, the quotes, the affirmations, the prayers, the notes, everything that you need to see the world differently, to see information differently, to understand the value of knowledge and community differently. And that way, that's a great way to stop just focusing on yourself, but focus on everything else that's happening. We're going to end this with an affirmation, and that is, I do not have to be perfect to be effective. I do not have to be perfect to be effective. So until next time, Clovers, peace out. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. Make sure to go to my website, www.chloelove.com, and join my subscriber list to receive emails where I share tips, updates, opportunities, and discounts to my community. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Chloe Love. Check the show notes for the links, and don't forget to tune into next week's episode. Until then, remember, you can't have $1 million goals with $1,000 skills and $100 worth ethics.